Should you take your career to the Middle East? A lot of our clients tell us that they want to move to the Middle East because of all the opportunities it presents. These clients typically work for low-cost airlines in Europe and feel that there is more to it than flying point to point and getting home every night, that their career won't be complete without something more. They tell me that they want to go fly long haul and that the Middle East seems to represent a really good opportunity when they are actually 2 to 3 years from upgrade at the most. When they mention the Middle East, of course, they think of Qatar Airways or Emirates. There are other airlines that can provide you opportunities as well with similar setups such as Etihad, Saudia, or even Turkish Airlines. Each of them will be slightly different in working conditions, lifestyle on site, and compensation. Now, it's important to understand why you may want to expatriate yourself. It's very difficult to actually understand and envisage the extent of these consequences and risks when you're about to make the move. You will only realize them later or when it's too late. So, I'm going to try and explain them to you now. Expatriation on another continent is not a minor move, it's a major move with massive implications on your life. Let's first go back and look at the reasons why you want to make such a move and then discuss the consequences and risks. The most common reason is you want to go long haul, which involves flying a bigger plane that has a double aisle, a business class, sometimes a first class, and you want the lifestyle that goes with long haul as well. And when I say bigger, I mean it. Long haul planes are 3 to 5 times bigger than short haul planes. They're really cool machines. I mean, I get it why anyone would want to fly them. Now, let me break it to you. The most exciting thing that you'll ever do with your career is to become a captain. It's not to go long haul or fly a larger plane, actually. Long haul is nice for sure, especially at the beginning, but it also comes with a lot of compromises. And actually, if you think of the long haul lifestyle, well, it's not exactly the same as the postcard. The good old days of going on a holiday in a place far away and having a fun time are long gone, and layovers these days are short. Sure, there will be the odd trip with 48 hours on site, sometimes a bit more, but it's far from the norm. What is for sure, however, is that you'll constantly be jet-lagged with very little time to recover. Out of the Middle East, just like out of Europe, because you're constantly traveling east or west, you're constantly fighting against your sleep and against the clock during layovers. Sleeping during the day is tough, hotels are rarely completely quiet, doors in the corridors bang, and if you oversleep, you may not manage to nap before your next flight. You'll hardly get to be outside for much more than 6 or 7 hours on a 24-hour layover because you need to sleep after your incoming flight because you're exhausted, and you'll need to nap before the next flight. As you arrive, you sometimes spend an awful long time waiting in line at the airport with a large crew, with each of you requiring a passport check, form filling, and sometimes fingerprints taken. You sometimes wait behind another large crew from another airline, and it can take you as much as 45 minutes to clear immigration in the US, for instance. And after that, you have another half-hour's drive, sometimes an hour in traffic or more, and may even, on a bad day, wait at the hotel for your hotel room. Transits and transfers are very, very tiring on long haul. So if your image of flying long haul was that it was a fancy life and that you're having cocktails by the pool at work, it's actually not that exciting. Now, what's exciting on long haul is not so much the lifestyle as the operation itself. The airplanes, like we said, are just fantastic. And the operation that goes with long haul too, the complexity of it, the amount of moving pieces that need to work together in order to dispatch these airplanes with 20 crew and close to 500 passengers on a Boeing 777, for instance, and even more on an Airbus 380 is quite something. You'll learn more procedures and will need to be on top of a much bigger game in order to be successful on long haul. It's exciting and it's within reach of every pilot. These airplanes are equipped with lots of toys that you won't have in a low-cost airline, such as SATCOM, access to medical service, CPDLC. You'll be flying ETOPS, Polar, and will go over the Himalayas. You'll have to learn lots of regulations linked to border and oceanic crossings, and we'll find that threats are everywhere. Threats that you'll have to mitigate, and gradually you'll get good at it. These airplanes also have a very large range of operation, with weights varying significantly from one day to the next and throughout the flight. A full Boeing 777 only reaches max landing weight 9 to 10 hours into the flight, with 4 or 5 hours to go, to give you an idea. You can fly it at max takeoff weight one day, which is 351 tons, and then fly an empty freighter the next day at 190 tons. These are large variations in weight, each of them having their own logic. This, compiled with the varieties of areas and diversity of airports, makes the operation very interesting. With alternates sometimes hours away, it's a different ballgame from short haul completely. One where things go slower to an extent, but you really need to keep on your toes as the airplane advances along the route, and you need to adjust to a new reality as it sets in. So if you're going to the Middle East for the technical and operational challenge, for sure you'll be satisfied with long haul. But go there for lifestyle, and after the first 6 months or a year, typically after you've seen many of the cool destinations and most areas, you'll probably start to miss sleeping in your own bed every night. So let's not go there for the wrong reason. Now let's talk about the consequences and risks. If you expatriate yourself in a foreign country that is far away from your home country on a different continent and in a different system altogether, you need to properly measure the risk. The first risk that you are taking is actually a massive risk on your career itself. If you are in a low-cost airline and you've been a first officer for 2 years, for 1 or 2 years, you're probably just 2 or 3 years away from your upgrade. Moving to the Middle East now, you're going to delay your upgrade further. It'll be 4, 5, 6 years away, okay? Because you need time to sit the selection and then time to get in and time to finally be on the line, and then you have to wait, okay? So you're delaying this process from now on 4, 5 to 6 years. I need to remind you that it's not enough to become a captain. You also have to mature your upgrade for 2 to 3 years before you can take this experience with you and interest another airline as a captain again. So the commitment that you're making if you enter as a co-pilot in a Middle Eastern airline, if you've never been a captain before, is to stay in the Middle East for at least 8 years. That's like a minimum, so you can validate your experience and leave the Middle East as a captain. So that's a long time. And now ask yourself this. What happens if 2 or 3 years after you've become a co-pilot in this Middle Eastern airline, something goes wrong? Something goes wrong because something happened with your family and you have to go back home. The spouse is unhappy, your parents are ill, or anything else that can happen. Something goes wrong because something happened on a flight and your captain or yourself are being scrutinized. Something happened because your airline is getting tense following an incident that they don't want to see happen again, and sim sessions become extra hard. Something goes wrong because you didn't perform in the sim and are being placed under training scrutiny. What do you do then when your airline tells you that actually your upgrade is going to be delayed for 2 more years because of that? Yes, it happens. And how much longer can you afford to age in the right-hand seat? And what happens if they say this to you again 2 years down the line? You'd have to wait 2 more years, and now you're starting to wonder if you'll ever actually upgrade. What are you going to do now? These are questions that you need to ask yourself, and you need to properly measure that risk. Now you're probably thinking, well, I'm a good pilot, I've never had a problem, and personal issues, really I'm quite young, I don't foresee that, plus the Middle East is just 6 hours away from Europe. Well, 6 hours is actually quite far away, especially when you fly as much as you fly in the Middle East, which is typically to the maximum. So organizing a trip back home is not so easy. The average roster, well, a common roster that you will have in the UAE is about 95 hours a month. In the UAE or in the Middle East in general is typically 95 hours a month, which is basically you getting to 900 hours a year, which is the legal limit. And in Qatar, they can fly you as much as 120 hours a month because the time in the bunk is not counted, which is incredible. A combining issue is that these airlines don't just fly long haul. They fly short haul, medium haul, long haul, and ultra long haul with a long haul airplane. This doesn't happen in Europe, where if you fly long haul, you only fly long haul, which kind of takes care of your roster, especially since in Europe, most airports are closed at night for regular passenger operations. This mix of short haul, long haul, and ultra long haul is very tough on you as a pilot, especially when the airport is open 24 hours a day and 40% of departures happen at 3 a.m. Yes, that's the way it is in the Middle East. So after a series of long-haul flights, you will do a 4-hour Dubai-Bangalore and back at 3 a.m., coming back at 1 p.m., barely able to function. You'll be so tired that it's difficult to explain. And you may do 3 of these in a row. And then if there's room to spare on your roster, you'll do some short hauls such as Muscat and back, which is just 40 minutes and back, depriving you of 1 more day off because it's not just 40 minutes and back. You need to get to the airport, do the normal briefing. You need to get to Muscat, 1 hour and a half to turn the airplane around, and then 40 minutes back and then to go home. It's a whole day for this short flight. Ultra long haul is done for crew. So ultra long haul is flights of typically 14 hours or more. Typically it's going to the US or going to Australia. This is done for crew, and it's not bad unless the layover is 24 hours or less, which is increasingly common and the most common case in Qatar, for instance. Why is it a problem if it's 24 hours or less, given that you actually sleep quite a lot on the plane? Well, it's because your body is getting very dried on the plane, so 14 hours or more on the plane, you feel very dry and tired, and if you have only 24 hours to rest and you're getting back on the plane for another 14 hours, I mean, you arrive back home really, really tired and quite thirsty for at least a day or 2, okay? And you can even fly as much as 16 hours to Houston or to Florida and 17 hours to Auckland, okay? So of course you think, well, that's fine, because if I do like 15 or 16 hours back and forth, that's 30 hours, and it's enough that I do that 3 times, and it's a really good life with maybe 15 days off or more, right? The problem is that you're going to do one ultra long haul like that, and then you're not going to do only that. They're going to give you a variation of long haul and short haul to make your roster a bit more balanced, but also so that they can squeeze as many flights as possible. As a result, you'll have much fewer days off. So you'll get an ultra long haul maybe, and then you'll go 2 or 3 times back to Europe or to Africa, and then after that you'll get as many of these night Indian flights as can fit on your roster, which means that at the end of the day, you're going to have something like 8 or 9 days off. And guess what? Few of them will be at the weekends. This means that your family life is very badly impacted by your work life. And when you come back home, you're exhausted, so exhausted that you can't even enjoy a single day of feeling well. You might think it's going to get better next month. Well, sometimes you will get a better roster with 12 days off, because maybe you have 2 ultra long haul flights, and it's the month where you are at the top of the seniority list. Because something else that you need to understand, and actually it was like that at Emirates, is that you don't accrue seniority and become senior and always be good. It's a rotating seniority system, which means that 1 month you're at the top, and then 4 months later you're at the bottom, okay? And sometimes when you are at your top bid and you don't have the flights you want, you get really disappointed, because this was your one chance, in 5 months to actually get a really good roster. So, it's hit and miss, and also you don't get your roster until quite late in the month. Sometimes it comes mid-month, sometimes a bit later, and it's kind of tough to plan your life around that, right? All in all, you'll be tired most of the time. It is only until you're on annual leave that you actually get to recuperate, which means that most of the year, when you're not on annual leave, you're actually just exhausted. And it's tough for your family to live in that sort of ambience, let alone the fact that you've got to go into the sim twice a year, and that's very stressful. During these sim months, you are not only tired, but preoccupied. And unlike for most major airlines in Europe, sim time doesn't count towards your hours. That's another 2 days off gone from your roster twice a year. So during a normal month when you're at home, your family will sometimes actually wish that you weren't home and that you were somewhere on a layover, because when you're home, you ask them to be quiet past 7 p.m. so you can sleep for your morning flight, for your night flight, right? So they understand it, of course, but this whole life becomes gradually a burden on them, no doubt. Picture this. You go to India back and forth in the middle of the night. You get up at midnight or midnight 30, and you've been trying to nap since maybe 6:30 or 7. Now, you've gotten 3 or 3.5 hours of a nap, if you're lucky. Now, you get up at midnight 30 maybe, you're briefing at 2:30, and you'll be on the plane at around 3 o'clock, and then you take off at 4. And then you've done one leg, you land, turn the airplane around, and you fly back. You arrive back home after what is quite long duty, really close to the maximum duty that you can actually do. And you arrive back home at 1 p.m., sometimes later, and you're absolutely fried for the rest of the day and for some of the next day. And then you'll just rest for 1 day, and you may be flying to Japan over the Himalayas the next day. And for this, you have to study, because the Himalayas is an area that is quite tricky to fly over. So all in all, it's just very exhausting to operate like this. It's tough for you, very tough for your family that had been waiting on you whilst you were flying, and gradually feel that they are not getting a really good deal out of this life after all. The implications on families creep in slowly, but they do creep in, and they build into life-defining situations. Only about a third of people who came with a formed family into the Middle East are still with their family 5 years after they arrive. Now, it's not an official statistic, but it's the going rate. It's what we talk about on the flight deck. We fly together and we see that other people's families are impacted, and we fly with people who've been here for 20 years, and they tell us how many of their friends are still here and how many families got broken. It just does happen. Gradually, wives just have enough of this lifestyle, of all these compromises, of being stuck. And yes, they like to fly in business class or in first class. And if you're a captain, when you fly without your children, you can fly first class. So yes, they do like that. But come a point, as soon as they have children, first of all, they don't fly in first class anymore. It's business class with the children if you're a captain, economy if you're a first officer. And so, because they're looking after the children, they don't get to fly anyway. In fact, they won't fly at all. They'll just fly when they go back home during the school holidays, okay? And so, during the rest of the year, they'll stay in the Middle East alone in the sand, and half the year in unbearable heat, whilst you go out flying with all these lovely cabin crew, or so they think. In fact, these lovely cabin crew are like you, tired, and most of the time, everybody goes to their room to sleep and recuperate for the next flight. Gradually, spouses get resentful that you get to fly away, go with your crew, see some nature and see something else, and they don't get to do that. Most just can't take it anymore after a while. And there is just so much happiness money can buy. At the end of the day, they'd rather have you the way things were before and have the most precious thing that you can give them, your time. So slowly they'll feel like they are living this life for you, and one day they'll feel that it doesn't work for them anymore. And they'll go, you know what, why don't you continue doing what you're doing, earn the money and just give me some of it and I'll just go back home. And if you're lucky, you'll remain married and still get to see your children. If you're not, well, then if they meet a nasty lawyer, for instance, and decide they actually want someone to be with them where they now live, well, you'll just be making money and giving it to them so that they can raise your children. So this may look like I'm painting a very black picture here, but it's actually the risk you are taking. I'm not saying this just because it happened to me, and it did. It happened to so many more. So many people that I spoke with, so many people have had difficult situations, end up commuting with this really tough roster. It's just something you need to take into account, because if it happened to me, if it happened to them, it could happen to you, and then what, okay? So those who make it work, and there are many who make it work, are those who move with a spouse that also really wanted to move to the Middle East, for instance. And perhaps they also had a career plans over there. For those, if the spouse is also an executive, for instance, they can really make a lot of money, tax-free, and retire young. Cases like these exist, but they remain rare. Now, look, out of all of my batchmates, there were like 12 or 13, I think, when we joined. There's only 5 of them left now. And we're talking about 10, 11 years after we joined, when most of us had 25 to 35 years left to fly. And we were one of the most solid batches that had people stay the longest. So some just have 1 or 2 batchmates left after 10 years. Imagine that. So if you thought that you were going to go there in order to be a captain and stay a captain until retirement, it's actually not looking very good statistically. And that's also why upgrades are relatively quick, if you wondered, not just because of the expansion, but because people leave. You always know when you come in, but you never know when you're going to have to leave. If you're joining now, that say you're 30 and this Middle Eastern airline, chances are it's not your last airline. And so say that you're 30, what are you going to do then if it's not your last airline? Say that you leave after 10 years, now you're 40, and what are you going to do exactly? What are you going to do? So the one thing that you can do is you're going to go back to your previous airline or go through the selection process of a different airline once again. Sure, if you've been a captain at Emirates or Qatar, many airlines will take you as a direct entry captain. Some will even pay for the type rating if you didn't keep your original type rating. But if you've not made it to the left seat in the Middle East by the time you need to leave, and if you've never been a captain before, you're going to have to wait again. Perhaps not a full 4 years, especially if you rejoin your original airline, but you'll have to wait some. You'll have to finance one more move. You'll have to move back. Yes, the company will pay for some of your move depending on how long you stayed, but there are going to be costs again. And you'll see that actually most of the money you made actually vanished. And the next thing you'll soon realize is that you've also lost most of your pension rights back home. You've got a massive hole in your home country's pension fund. Yeah, these are things you don't think about when you leave, but they have a massive impact on your subsequent life, on the last part of your life. And even as an active person, as you think of how much this hole now is and you've got to compensate for it, you're going to see that actually this move to the Middle East didn't make you very much money at all. In fact, maybe even the opposite. Yes, these airlines help you build a form of pension by collecting some of your salary and adding some on top. However, it is mostly insufficient. Plus, having been away several years, the state pension plan of the country you're a citizen of may be lost to you or almost completely lost to you. And that's actually what happened for us coming back. I'm a French citizen. Coming back to France, I realized that actually I had a whole of 10 years of contribution and that compensating this was near impossible. Now, where others can retire at 62 or 65 if they want, for me it's 67, and the amount I'm going to get is ridiculously small for someone who's been an airline pilot actually. That's because this 10-year gap can never be filled again. So it's not the same in every country, but this is the way it is now. So you need to do your due diligence before you leave so that you know what you're getting into, and maybe you need to save and you need to continue to contribute into your home country's pension scheme so that you are not impacted when you retire. All in all, depending on how careful you've been at planning this, Rare are those who are. You're likely to lose money by going to the Middle East. So you will come back at some point and realize that actually the money you thought you made, first of all, you gave half of it to your spouse maybe, and there's actually not that much left because all of the money you've had to spend to go back and forth, back home, and just to get a bit of leisure, you need to fly away from the Middle East for a change of scenery. All of this is expensive. You'll also spend quite a bit of money on site because living expenses are quite high. And to just make sense of your life, you need to have a bit of comfort. And all in all, you will see that a lot of the money that you thought you were going to make when you moved, actually not much of it is left. Let alone the fact that you have no unemployment rights when you go back to your home country, something that a lot of us thought would never be a problem because we all thought if we lose our job in the Middle East, it won't be long for us to get another job in Europe. Well, during the COVID, many of us ended up with a big zero when we got back with no employment rights. And that was very, very tough, okay? So the money that you do pay in taxes in other countries, there's a reason for it. And if you're wise, you'll also keep your short-haul type rating current. This means costs. Every year you need to go back to the SIM. You may need to travel to go and do this SIM check. Yes, the salary is tax-free, but hidden costs, as I've just explained, will make a very big dent into what you'll actually save, let alone the pension problem. And they will tell you that also education is free. Well, it's free to an extent. There are lots of costs that are not covered. They will cover a large portion of it, but the base price of schools is such that even the portion that's not covered, that will make a big dent in your budget. And if you have 2, 3 children, it starts to build quite significantly as well. Projecting yourself to stay there until you're 65 is not a realistic career path in my mind. Just look at what happened to my batch and to the other batches with 4 or 5 at the most, or 1 or 2 people left in those batches. Just to give you an idea of what happened to my batch, one left very quickly because his wife couldn't take it and he decided to go back to his original airline and protect his family. One got demoted because of a go-around that didn't go well and he ended up leaving. One got his upgrade delayed significantly due to a bad SIM and I think he stayed. One got fired just as COVID started, just because, well, he had a little bit too many sick days before COVID and they took this opportunity to let him go as part of the first batch who left. We had some Americans who went back to the US because, for them it's 14 hours away, it's quite far. And one of them had serious family issues similar to mine, and they only got worse. So some people can just go back to their original airline. We had that a lot from our batches. Some would go to Korean Airlines because in those days commuting was easier. From Korea, they had these contracts where you would work less. So some were looking for contracts like this, but you see, you're expatriating yourself further and further, okay? So now really you need to ask yourself the right question. Why are you going there? And if you're going there just because you want to go long haul, don't worry. You can do it later. It's always there. It will always be available to you. Become a captain first in Europe is my advice. And then after that, go there. It's exciting. You'll be happy to go there then, and if you go there as a captain, it's even better because you've got more experience. What you've learned becoming a captain is something that you'll definitely be able to use when you discover long haul. So go there to take what there is to take, but don't give them your whole career. Don't put all of that precious career of yours in their hands and all of your future. And you don't want to put yourself in a corner from which you may not be able to exit and end up being a co-pilot who's not upgrading and who's just getting older. So go there for what's really stunning with them, which is to get that long-haul exposure and the fascinating operation that comes with it. Don't go there as a co-pilot and put yourself in this corner, this situation where you can't live for several years because you need this upgrade so badly, and after that need to mature as a captain as well. We talked about the operation, which I am sure you will like. Even despite the tiredness, this operation will fascinate you, this I am sure. Now, there are plenty of other positives, such as the cultural diversity, but the one that stands out in the Middle East really is the quality of the training. Training is excellent both at Qatar and at Emirates. And when I mean quality training, I really mean quality training. These airlines have great facilities, and they invest a lot more in their training facilities than conventional major airlines, as we know them in Europe. Now, it doesn't mean that their trainers are better. The trainers at BA, and I was a British Airways pilot, so I flew short haul and long haul for them, as you know. The trainers at BA were excellent, very, very similar in a way. The TREs were just great. And I'm sure they're great at Air France and Lufthansa as well, okay? But the means that the training department had at its disposal was just so much more at Emirates, so much more in the Middle East in general, and I hear exactly the same from Qatar, okay? And I was surprised when I arrived at Emirates how much investment there was in training. So what do I mean exactly? It's not just the facilities, it's how much effort is placed into constantly training you and giving you the best that they can give you, basically. Lots of very competent staff create documents, e-learning modules about any types of risks, and they are beautifully made so that they're actually easy to learn. They create really good PowerPoints and leaflets and summaries that help you understand and implement SOPs better, for instance, but also understand risks. I mean, they just really try hard, and it shows and it produces results. So this is particularly valuable because the environment these days changes so often. It just does, and a new regulation comes over the Atlantic, or an event happened on a flight with the airline you're in or another airline, and you'll get lots of useful and practical information to make better educated decisions. A new SOP comes in, such as a change to the bump on board procedure, for instance, which is something that happened during my time, just during my upgrade. And they will really educate you to understand the underlyings of it, and it's just good. It's just very good. Over time, it just compiles, and you'll feel that you've been given so much, and that's certainly how I feel. So many cool resources to explain any type of operation: hot and fly operations, polar, Himalayas, operational performance, non-precision approaches, the different types of go-arounds. I mean, it is just well made. A lot of resources at your disposal to help you become a more educated and better equipped pilot to face any type of situation. Sure, we all made summaries on our own at BA, and it was a great operation. Like I said, the trainers were great, but they expected a lot of it to be done by you, okay? Emirates and Qatar, I know, it just excel in this and bringing you things so that, and this is something that you will enjoy. And another thing that I thought was remarkable at Emirates was the CRM training. It was very well designed and very advanced, and it had to, because it's a multicultural company, like all of these expatriate companies, and they had to make a very big investment in CRM, and they really did. This had direct consequences on how nice it was to work there. It was very pleasant to be a co-pilot at Emirates because, first of all, the SOPs were extremely well designed. The SOPs at BA were good, but this was yet another level of refinement. Everything in the UMA was so well thought through, it was really impressive. Now, don't get me wrong, the BA SOP was very good. The Emirates SOP was a bit bigger, and you go, oh, they really go into a lot of detail. And yes, but this detail was well thought through, and it was well worth it. I really enjoyed that with Emirates. Now, captains were pleasant to work with also because they were standard. They were just applying what Emirates was expecting, and they were doing it well, which I would say at BA, on short haul, it was the case. On long haul, during my time, it was my impression, my feeling, certainly, is that there were still quite many captains who took quite a lot of liberties with the SOP and were not completely, let's say, they followed the SOPs, but some had their interpretation, which this would not happen to that extent at Emirates. For instance, many wouldn't read their FMAs. The call-outs wouldn't come with as much precision. And as a co-pilot, it's important to have that because, first of all, the captain's supposed to lead by example, and when they make the calls, you end up making the calls, but also because it's actually part of CRM. If someone doesn't make the call, why are they not making the call? Is it because they're tired, they're becoming incapacitated? What's going on, you see? So I'm not going to go into much more detail, but basically it's pleasant, and that's also because of the effort that they've made in the training and in the CRM. Now at BA, captains were great, don't get me wrong. If something happened, you knew they would make a good decision. You'd see them do that in the sim, that they were excellent, they were good captains, and I always felt very comfortable and safe with them. BA gave excellent command training. I know that for all the captains said it, and you could just see they were so good, okay? So I'm just saying that it's just very, very nice from a CRM perspective as a co-pilot in these airlines in the Middle East from a CRM perspective, okay? You have less to adjust, so to say, and you'll enjoy things being done properly by so many people. It's kind of pleasant, really it is. Unfortunately, so why do people behave and follow SOPs so well? Part of it is because of the quality of the training, because they want to do well. And unfortunately, some of it is because they are worried that if something goes bad or something is not optimal, that they may lose their job. So of course, people behave, and unfortunately, some do lose their jobs because of something didn't go all that well on a flight. And some people call it the culture of fear. It is something that, in my mind, is counterproductive, that is a bit sad. And I've seen some lose their jobs and their lives being broken. And I find that with perhaps a more permissive approach, it would have been better. It's a shame that one of the reasons why people are so good in their applying of the SOPs is also because they're scared. And that's the crux of the issue with moving to the Middle East altogether. The Middle East, or even China for that matter, it's very similar. It has to be properly reflected upon. Now, to be honest, Emirates have always been good to me. They've taught me so much, like I said, both as a captain and from the time I spent in recruitment. I've learned so much from them and was able to do so many of these really cool flights and demanding operations that force you to up your game. And for that, I am truly grateful. And like I said, they were always nice with me from a human resources perspective. They were very nice, in fact. But I've had colleagues who had a tougher time. And you never know the intricacies and why that happened, but I wouldn't have liked to be in their seat. I know that some have been sent to tricky simulator sessions or got a surprise line check after something happened on a flight that wasn't just appreciated, and some other crew members, mentioned it, and then they got under scrutiny. And now their life went from being normal to all of a sudden having this sort of burden on them. This to me is a bit of a shame. This fear that goes with it. Okay, in my mind, it's wrong. And I've heard that in China it can get even worse. That if you do a bad landing or a hard landing, you could be sort of prevented from flying for a couple of weeks, and then you'll have lots of pay removed. This sort of stuff is not right. But okay, that's my opinion. Like I said, to me, this didn't really happen. I was never subject to it. So the real problem, in my view, is not so much the airlines who present, all in all, with all I've said, there are actually more positives than negatives. The training, the environment, everything you can learn, so long you do it at the right time and you don't put yourself in a corner, so that you have this lifeline back home that you can go back and be a captain quick, then that's fine, okay? But the problem is not so much the airlines, that all in all they are, bar a few examples that you wonder why people have left so fast. It's the countries themselves, particularly their labor laws that are a problem, okay? These labor laws allow airlines to do things that if they so choose on a specific person, for instance, to do things that would just never happen in Europe or in the US. They can fire you for any reason at any time. It could be just because they don't like you for a reason, because you've been sick a little bit too much and therefore considered unproductive. There are a few things you discover when you arrive, such as, for instance, you're allowed 12 months of sickness over a 10-year period. What happens if you get a hip replacement? Or, I told you that, imagining that you can stay there until you're 65 is not really realistic, okay? Unions are illegal and complaining is not really a good idea. During COVID, to give you an idea, salaries were reduced by 40 to 50%. I think it was 40% in Qatar and it was 50% in the UAE. It was almost overnight, which was a complete breach of contract. And it was just made legal in a day. They made it legal, So that's what can happen in these countries. Things can happen fast to accommodate what needs to be done. This would not have been the case in Europe, and in Europe, in fact, people continued to get paid, and very few people, in fact, lost their jobs in large airlines in Europe. Some did, but then they had unemployment rights, and it wasn't that tough for them. Where I was, people were fired in hundreds and not offered any severance package. They got 3 months, and that's it. So when they got back home, like I said, they had no unemployment benefits. Many depleted more than half of their pension pots just to survive the time that it took for them to get another job. And they were not even offered to come back at their original grade, despite selections reopening and large marketing campaigns being launched, like now, for these airlines to recruit again. So it's like these people are gone and they've kind of been forgotten, So that's the sort of thing that can happen. But even before COVID, it wouldn't be uncommon to see a neighbor and their family at a barbecue one weekend, and then 2 weeks later, or maybe a month later, they're gone. Their house is, empty, and 2 more weeks and someone's moving in, and you're like, oh my God, what happened? And you'll just never know. So this feeling that your whole life could collapse at any time, this feeling of impending doom, is tough to live with. And in these countries, I'd say everything's fine so long it's fine. Okay, so everything's fine until it's not. Okay, the problem is you never know when something might go wrong. You never know whether it will fall on you like it's fallen on someone else. You just never know when. And that's, I find, is quite tough. Like I said, something could go wrong on your flight and all of a sudden things could go downhill very fast. It's fine so long it's fine. It's fine so long it's not. And it's not just the technical aspect. You never know when something else in your life will destabilize and go and make this whole adventure the worst decision you've ever made. So all in all, think of the reason why you're doing it. And if I were you, I'm not telling you not to go. First of all, I hope that this kind of open your eyes a bit. If you are in Europe and you've not managed to get into a major airline and you would like to go long haul, sure, you'll do it. You'll just do it at some point. Just choose your timing right, okay? So if I were you, I would first stay with my low-cost airline. So stay with your low-cost airline. Become a captain there, which again, I remind you, is the coolest thing that you'll ever do, okay? Become a captain and then mature your upgrade a bit, stay there for 2 or 3 years so that you can show a nice 2,500 hours as a captain on your short-haul plane. And then you can consider to move to the Middle East. And then what you could do is you could just go to the Middle East, pass your selection, go there, and then you'll get to see long haul as a co-pilot for 2 or 3 years. And then you can reassess. Do you want to carry on? Do you want to become a captain in these airlines? Or have you seen what you had to see and you just take your chips and go back home? This, to me, would be a really, really good thing to do, because now that you know what I've told you about what could happen to your family, you may want to prevent that and then just go there as a nice adventure that you'll do collectively with your spouse, with your family, and then maybe just go back home, okay? And remember, the Middle East will always be there for you. It will be there. It's there for you now. It'll still be there for you in 3 or 4 years. Go to the Middle East to take what they have to give you, to take what there is to take, which is the long-haul experience, the quality of their training, and when you've done 3 years, just reassess. The chance of your life destabilizing over 3 years is relatively low. And if you're there with your spouse and kids for 3 years, they will probably manage, especially if they know that you're open to returning. So I hope that this advice was useful to you and that you will make the right decision and think of what's most important for you. Now, I really wanted to record this module because so many of you have told me that they want to apply for an airline in the Middle East. Now that you've seen this, that their eyes are open, if you decide to go, we are here to help you. We'll be more than happy to help you. As you know, that's what we do and we do it well. So you can consider advanced interview course. If you've not yet taken a look at it, take a look at it now. It's just like the Middle East. It's here now. It'll be here tomorrow to help you out. Come and see us on Discord as well. We're always happy to chat with you on Discord. We've got channels for each of these airlines. It's always nice to interact with you. And we look forward to getting to know you and helping you further very soon.